Hello, everybody, and welcome for another talk about relationships. Today's talk is going to be a little bit um, similar, or maybe a bit on the same line of what we spoke about before. And we're digging deeper as well in regards to how do we behave and how do we expect, how do we do, what do we need to do to be able to deal with the fears that we have inside us, or the thoughts of, for example, losing myself. So this is quite common. So many people get into many arguments or many disagreements and conflicts, mainly because they fear that the person or the partner is trying to change them. And that can be detrimental to the relationship. So we're going to be talking about this today. So the thought is, one partner would say, this is something also friends tell each other. It's like, when you go to this relationship, make sure you don't lose yourself. And the first question comes to mind is like, what does that mean? What does that mean to lose yourself? It's really important to know for yourself, what does it mean for you to lose yourself? And then that would be the basic starting point. So you start with that, and then we can evaluate if the definition of losing yourself is accurate. So for example, if losing myself is about really not changing at all, that's not reasonable. Because if you go in a relationship, you're very likely you will change certain things. Now, some people are rigid to be changed, or rigid for change. They don't want to change. And that's possible. And the other person can still be in a relationship without them also changing. So it's just about, it's like a two-way to look at this. So if one person doesn't want to change anything, it is possible to still have a relationship, as well as the other partner doesn't have to also change. So they both can coexist without any changes, any significant changes, and the relationship will flourish. So it's not really a deal breaker. However, whether we like it or not, we will change. It's not something that we need to do as a requirement or a prerequisite for a relationship. It's just the nature of being in a relationship. We will change. We will change in one way or another. Could be to the better, could be to the worse. So going back to the definition, what does it mean? What does it mean for you not to lose yourself? And that's really the key starting point. If changing yourself or losing yourself means that you will not do things you don't like, that's not necessarily also something that we can control. Sometimes in a relationship, we will need to do something that we also don't like. It's just the nature of having a relationship. Like, even if you're at work, you're talking to your boss, and you do certain things and you really don't like doing it. It's something that sometimes we have to do, quote unquote, the dirty work, just for once in a while. Sometimes it could be also persistent and consistent in a sense. But that's where we can communicate to the other person in the relationship. It's like, I've been doing this for quite some time. I need help. I need this to be done. So we can still communicate about that. So again, it's not necessarily that when I say I don't want to lose myself, it doesn't necessarily mean that I don't have to do things that I don't like doing. So these two things that I just mentioned, if that's what you think about not losing yourself, then that's maybe not something is reasonable. Even though if it is, what is it that you want, it is possible to continue to have a relationship with these thoughts in your mind, with these cautious thoughts that you have, about the relationship. You don't want to change. You don't want to do anything you don't want to do, or you don't like to do. Like, for example, if you were the sibling, or if you're the child, you don't like to take the trash out. Well, I mean, don't expect that to be, to find another family that would not expect that from you. So it's something that it's just sometimes we need to allow these things to happen, and at the same time we can talk about it. So I'm going to go a little bit bigger in terms of changing, or losing myself. It could be about values. Do I need to lose my values in a relationship? Do I need to lose my principles? Do I need to lose the way I speak? Do I need to lose the way I talk? The way I eat? The frequency I eat? My lifestyle? Not necessarily. And that's the beauty of this talk today. It's about really talking to your partner about what are the things you like to have and the things that you cannot change whatsoever. So therefore, it allows your partner to say the same thing. So this to some people might be listening to this, they might thinking, well, wait a minute, this might cause a problem in the marriage or a problem in the relationship. Not necessarily. Actually, it enables the place and the environment for communication. And remember what we spoke about before. The purpose of communication is really to understand. So when you are in this situation that you want to highlight things that you want to have, for example, I don't need to have your friends to be my friends. Your friends don't have to come home. I don't need to be your friends to be my friends. Or I would really like to spend time with your friends, and I want to know your friends just like I would like you to know my friends. So these are the things that I would like, for example, in my relationship. And then my partner or the other person in the relationship would probably have a different preference. And that's where we start communicating to find common ground. There's a word that I really don't like using a lot. Is called compromise, and I don't like using this word because even though it's explained in a certain way that it's really not about compromising, but it's always presented and it's actually acted on with the compromise of the other person's or one of the two people's standards or expectations or values even. So compromise is not something that I would like to use, but instead of compromise, I would like to use collaborate. I would like to use to discuss and create instead of compromise. It's still a C word, but it's about really coming together with a new environment. And that's what partnership or relationship can be for many of us. It's really about creating a new culture for the couple, for the parent, for the father and the children. And the thing about fathers and children and mothers and children, parents in general, it's very common, and it's really not healthy, but it's very common. Parents treat their children the same way the minute they're born until they are married and have children. That's not really good, because as the child grows, the child grows through stages, and every stage the child has different needs, has different thoughts, and therefore the parent, because they're the adult, they need to acknowledge and adjust and develop with the child. So the child's need from birth until 7 years old, totally different. Even with that, within the first 7 years, it really changes every other year or every year even. So at the early stage, it kind of changes every month actually. So every month, and then every year, and then it develops to every 7 years. You will see the child going through different phases in their lives. So with that said, it's having in any relationship, it is no different. Every relationship that we have, it has phases. It goes through phases. And if we're not mindful of these relationship phases that we're in, we will miss it. 10 months or even a year or even 5 years down the road in the relationship, the road would get rocky and things would still be, would start to be unhealthy, unstable. So you'll find one partner in the relationship will hold things back in, and just so they would hope things would be better, or the bad things will go away, or they pray, or they talk to friends or family. But the problem doesn't happen. The problem doesn't disappear like that. Things don't happen like that. You need to really be proactive and assertive in order for you to have this relationship. Just like having a plant or a flower or a rose in your garden. You cannot just sit back and just expect that the rain and the sun is going to take care of it on its own. It does need your intervention. It needs your engagement in the relationship. And same thing for the relationship. Think of the relationship as a third person between you and the other person in the relationship. The relationship, think of it as a person. Think of it as a living thing. It needs to feed. It needs to breathe. And that's what allows it to be. So being fearful of not being not wanting to change or lose yourself. You don't want to lose yourself, whatever that means to you. It can prevent you from nurturing your relationship. So don't do that. What you need to do is actually be engaged in the relationship, acknowledge what is it that you need, the things that you don't want to change, the things that you want to keep having, the values, the principles, the behaviors, and then talk to your partner about it. Both of you can come and create something new that both of you would be very happy to continue in nurturing the relationship. And this is not something that you can do on your first date. This is not something you can do in the first week of the relationship or the first month, but it needs to be done when these things you start to feel like, I'm feeling like I'm not keeping my routine, for example, or I'm not keeping my lifestyle that I used to have. Then we can talk to the partner or even reflect on by ourselves. So this is something that you can do, is to reflect. Is it really do I really need to keep doing it? Is this going to help the relationship? Is this going to help me in the relationship to be proactive, to be engaged, and so forth? Then I can check, how important it is to me. Well, it might not be really important for the relationship, but it's important to me. And then we can talk to the partner about it, so we can get feedback, and then we understand their position, or they would understand my position, and therefore if there is a difference in understanding, the talking will clear that up, will clear the misunderstanding. And if there is a difference in expectations or vision, then both can create a new vision, can create a new dream. And these things cannot exist if there is conflict. If there are conflicts between the couple, if there are challenges, if there are feelings or hard feelings or distance, being distant from your partner, these things will not easily, these things meaning like these talks about what I don't want to change about myself, what I don't want to lose myself. These talks will not happen in a healthy manner if the foundation of good relationship is not there. All right, so I'm going to pause here, see if anybody has any thoughts or comments or questions. I'm more than happy to address that. No? Oh, you just joined us, so yeah. Yeah, that's all right. These things happen. Okay. So just to kind of quick synopsis is really the topic is about some people fear or they fight losing, quote unquote, losing themselves, but they really never really, some people not really deeply understood what does that mean. So it's really important to know what it is to you to, quote unquote, lose yourself, that you don't want to have that in the relationship. Another thing is that you need to establish this communication and being engaged on instead of working on it alone, you really need to engage your partner, because both of you, there's the opportunity is really to create something new that maybe you never thought of. And again, the concept of holding back from being losing, or from being lost, losing yourself in a relationship, that thought needs to be validated. Is that really true? If you were to have this new routine, does that mean you lost yourself? Is it really that important to you? So understanding what it is to you, what's important it is to you, what is it important to your relationship for you in that relationship, and also what is it to you for your partner as well. And I also mentioned about compromise is really not a good thing, but we need to collaborate, we need to create and cooperate. And these are better words than compromise. And all of these things happen by communicating. So, so that's it? No thoughts, no questions?
What if I was losing ourselves in the relationship, but we are afraid that after we tell our partner, there will be disappointment?
So if you feel like you already lost yourself, if somebody already lost themselves and they talk to the partner, and the partner would be disappointed, is that like the assumption is the partner will be disappointed, or did the partner become disappointed?
The partner become disappointed.
Okay, he became or she became disappointed. Okay, so in this circumstances, it's really important to first we need to acknowledge that you did reach out. So that's a really important thing, that you did reach out, you did communicate to the partner. The partner feels disappointed. We need to understand what's the cause of that disappointment. Where did that disappointment come from? Maybe they blame themselves. Maybe they blame you. Maybe they would say something like, I mean, not you, but I'm talking about the other person. Maybe they blame the other person for not speaking up earlier or something like that. All of these things are, if it's a blaming self or other, it's not going to be healthy. It's really important to reach out for professionals to help out. Because this is, professional, like marriage or relationship counselors. So this is really need to be addressed from both parties to understand where this is coming from. The should and I should have done something different. You should have told me about it earlier. All of these things can bring a negative down spiral in the relationship. So it's really important to be mindful of that. So instead, if we were to acknowledge the person is like, oh, I feel really, I regret that I didn't receive that, or I needed to be more mindful, or I needed to engage and check on you more often. How can we improve moving forward? And this would be a healthy way to look at it. So they need to look into how can we move forward? How can we address this change? What would you like to do about it? Being mindful that for the person, quote unquote, losing themselves in the relationship, the other partner, the other person in a relationship has lived a normal life, quote unquote, from their perspective. So if you want to bring yourself that you lost back in the relationship, it's going to impact the other person's perspective, right? So that also needs to have time to heal and to adjust to the new self that is being recovered or revived. Does that make sense? So it's a process that it really needs to be, that's why I said this couple or these people need to go to a therapist or a counselor, because it will help things to move in a positive trajectory, and it will help develop the relationship in this new two partners, basically. So how does that answer your question, or anything that you would like me to elaborate on?
I do have a question. So if we will communicate with the partner already, and we suggest him or her to go for marriage counselor or therapy, and they refuse.
Okay, so if this discussion happened, and one person told their partner is like, let's go to therapy, let's go to counseling, and they refuse. So So this is quite common in places that counseling is seen as, being stigmatized or seen as a negative thing. It's really common for people not to reach out to get professional help, especially when it comes to relationship. So I always would like to remind the person who doesn't want to go through counseling, I would like to remind them that if they can strip naked in front of a medical doctor for a checkup, they can come and talk to any counselor, any marriage counselor, about themselves and about their private life. So just be mindful, because I always imagine that our private body, being naked in front of a nurse or a doctor is quite awkward, but it's not as awkward to come to see a counselor and marriage counselor to talk about your marriage, about your behaviors. So there's nothing to be ashamed of. So this is one thing to be mindful of. Number two is that this person needs to understand that the marriage counselor have seen it all and I've heard it all. So like for myself, I can only speak for myself. I've heard millions of stories. I'm not there to judge, If you were to talk to your friends or to your family, they're very likely they will judge. Whether they like it or not, it's just because their nature is that. Maybe they never thought of you that way. And then they start thinking of you in a certain way. But the therapist, for us as counselors, marriage counselors, we don't think that way. We're trained and we have been exposed to the good, bad, and the ugly. I mean, it's pretty much everything. We've seen it all. So you're not going to come and they're going to tell us something that we haven't heard before in a previous relationship counseling. We've heard it all. We've seen it all. I really think so. Unless I'm missing something, but it's something that I feel like it's nothing to be ashamed of, but we need to know this in order for us to help you. Is it really comfortable to give your urine sample or the solid samples to your doctor? It's very embarrassing, but it's part of the job. You need to diagnose the situation. And same thing with marriage. You really need to get to the ugly part. So these are the kind of reminders for the person. Now, another thing that this person who's refusing to go see a counselor, they need to be mindful of that. If your partner is asking for it, you really need to reconsider your decision not to go for therapy, because the relationship is getting that bad. That is impacting your partner's life, that he or she is actually calling you to go to therapy. It's like, let's just scream for help. I mean, there's really no other way to say it. If you reject it, it's pretty much is going to go downhill from that point on, because that person, one of two things will happen. One of these people will definitely lose themselves in a relationship. Because one person is asking for help and they're not being heard. That person is very likely to lose themselves in the relationship, and they will probably diminish. And if that's what they want and they prefer to have the relationship, that's their decision. But it doesn't have to be that way, folks. It doesn't have to be so painful. You can reach out as a couple to improve the relationship. The other point that I want to mention to both of these parties in the relationship is that if this person who is asking the partner to go for therapy is going for therapy alone, it's very likely, like the chances of 60 to 75%, there'll be a separation in that relationship. And reason being is that when one person in a relationship, when one person goes to counseling or goes to therapy, the therapist is not doing it. We are only focusing on the person, and the person is going to grow. And this other partner is still stagnant to the old way of doing things. And therefore, this person, as they grow, the gap is even much more than what it was before. So this gap is going to make the relationship snap, and they will continue to take care of themselves, because the partner is really not listening, is not understanding their pain, or maybe they're not really doing a good job explaining it. It could be either way, but it doesn't mean that they don't go to therapy. It's really important. That's why I don't see one person in therapy when they come to therapy for the relationship. I tell them, I prefer not to see you. I would like to have your partner to come along if you really want to work on the relationship. I've had exceptions because the scope was not about the relationship, is about them in the relationship, and that's a different scope. But that's different, and again, these are the things that we do as therapists. We really want to do what's best. I mean, for me, I do what's best for the relationship. And regardless of the person's, or depending on the person's agenda, it would really help. So for the person who's not open and rejecting or preventing or resisting going to counseling about their relationship, I would like you to revisit that thought. And I would like to invite you to take a courageous step. It's not going to be an easy thing on you. It can be quite courageous to go and see a stranger to talk about your private life. There's no doubt about that. But remember what I said earlier in regards to go and see a medical doctor for the first time and actually stripping naked in front of them. So this is much easier, I would think. But again, I acknowledge that it can be a challenge for you. But believe me, if you see the right counselor for your marriage counselor, if you see the right person, it will be worth your time and worth the effort. And it's a courageous thing to do. That's all I can say at the moment. So I hope I addressed your concern there or question, but it's commendable that that partner who expressed her need or his need to go through therapy, it's commendable that they are reaching out for help and they're starting with the partner, and that's really the right thing to do. If you feel like you're not happy in a relationship, you really need to reach out to a partner, see if they're open for the idea. If they're not, come to see a therapist, come and see us, come and talk to us, call us on the phone. We'd be more than happy to assist you and assess the situation, what needs to be done or what can be done to help you, to mitigate, to also have a chat with your partner, and we will be more than happy to see what's preventing your partner from coming over. Any other thoughts or questions or comments? All right, with that, I will end it here. Until the next week talk, we will I look forward to see you all. Until then, happy relationship and stay happy.